And again, it comes down to that trust, right? Like, do people trust you to work remote? And even if you're trying to get the job, do they trust you during the hiring process, right? Like, how do we build that trust? And it's usually through communication, like spending more time over communicating even a little bit to some degrees and things like that. One of the other things that I think is really interesting as you talk about the future of work is trends, right? Because a lot of times it's not unfortunately it's not always the best idea that wins, it's the one that catches on the most, right? And so we had this big shift when I was entering the workplace from cubicles to shared office spaces, right? So my first job I was in cubicle land, right? Like Dilbert with the little prairie heads. And then in my second job it shifted to like pods in an open workspace, and everyone thought that that was going to be incredibly um, helpful in encouraging collaboration. But there was this company I don't know about recently, but there was this company that did, they had all their employees wear these badges on their chest, these like necklaces that tracked their audio interactions. And like if the two things were facing each other for 10 seconds or more, that would count that as like an actual interaction and things like that. And they saw a massive decline, like 70% decline in people talking to each other and collaborating in open workspaces from cubicles, because cubicles, you would actually go visit someone's cubicle and talk to them. Whereas in the open workspace, everyone's just like so overwhelmed and scattered and things like that. And so there's these interesting things that happen with trends where maybe not the best idea wins, but the most popular idea wins. So as someone who focuses on the future and trends and things like that, what have you sort of seen historically as like the things that tend to win out? What are the big trends that we've gone through in the past, and what could we learn about those in the future?
Well, as a workplace futurist, I think about this all the time, about what we can learn from the past. But since I focus so much about the future and the trends that we've already adopted, I gave the example of, the paperwork. Do we really need paper? If we haven't used it in 16 months, do we really need to store it in file cabinets, for instance?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just get rid of most of that. We weren't able to do that 16 months ago, but we kind of can now. The other phrase I heard yesterday was Zoom for one, Zoom for everyone. So when you go back into the office, we have the inclusion going on in the workplace, so everybody feels like they're welcoming and included. And the way to do that is Zoom for one, Zoom for everyone. And you are at your desk having meetings so that people that are always remote for their roles don't feel excluded, and then they don't get in on the whiteboard conversation that you might have in the conference room, right? So we're starting to use different types of tools online to compensate for that. I'm a big whiteboard person. So if you want to say, what can we take from the past to the future? How can we really make that real? I still there's nothing more that I love to get up to a whiteboard, put stuff up there, plaster sticky notes, and to start mixing everything around. I still find it, somewhat unsatisfying to try to use the tools and switch those little sticky notes, whiteboard stuff around online. But that's some of the things that I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there in virtual reality. Virtual reality will be a part of our work environment. Virtual reality headsets, not this year, not next year, but it's not that far away. These trends kind of happen and then it just really goes. I mean, we were talking about blockchain, 9 years ago, and now it's really happening. We were talking about AI and all that, 10 years ago, and now it's really happening and it's escalating. So these trends are all affecting our workplace and the types of roles that we hold.
That's such a good point, because I think, job seekers, they're like, well, I really want to work remote. It's like, okay, but what does that mean for how you work remote, right? It's not just, I want to work remote and do things my way and it's my way or the highway. It's like, no, you still have a boss. You still have a team that you need to collaborate with, right? And, I was part of a group recently, and we were using like 7 different pieces of software just to communicate with each other. It's like we've got these different places to, blanking on all this. Asana. We were using Asana. We were using Slack. We were using email. It's just like, where is everything? We have Google Docs, and it's like, it does make things more difficult. And I think, again, being part of the solution rather than sort of a stick in the mud who's contributing to the problem, which is like, I want to work remote, so cater to me. It's like, no, no, no. If you want to work remote, how do you still be the most helpful person in the room, right? That's what the job search is all about, is being helpful. How do you help this company?